Welcome to our first presentation in a series of project definition. William & Bernard Limited is a project management training company aimed at improving the standards of the design and construction industry. With over a decade of experience in project implementation, William & Bernard Limited will help to guide you to bring out the absolute best in yourself and the projects you work on. So, let's dive in and look at how we define a project. In this first presentation, we will look at the 6 key elements of any project and the future course programme to help guide you through each of these 6 project elements. First, let's start off with the Google definition of a project. A project is defined as an individual or collaborative enterprise that is carefully planned to achieve a particular aim. Picking out the key words in this phrase are an enterprise, carefully planned, achieve an aim. The key to a successful project is that they are carefully planned and all efforts are to achieve an aim set by the project. To make any project a success, you need to follow 6 key elements, which we will now define. So these are the 6 elements of a project. Each element needs to be followed in sequence, and each element must be complete before moving on to the next. Inception. In this element of the project, you and your project team need to consider the need for the project. Is there a need? This is where you and your project team will define the why for the project. Why is the project needed? For example, if we're looking at a new road, is the road needed to ease congestion or make the road safer for users? We also need to look at the business case. Is there a case that the project may bring efficiencies to the business operation? Will the project improve the business's environmental impact? Therefore, in this element, we may look at existing data to understand the need for the project. Is there data that suggests the project may reduce journey time and the environmental impact? And can this be quantified? In this element, we also need to set the project goals and aims. We need to set the matrix in which to measure success. For that, we need to understand the starting point, and this will help to pave a clear path to the end goal. In this element, you may also have an appreciation for the project budget based on previous projects. To complete this element and to move on to definition, we need to define why the project is needed and set clear, achievable goals and matrices in which to measure the success. Definition. In this element, we need to clearly define the project. This is the most important element of the project and therefore usually takes the longest time in a project's life to ensure the project is clearly defined in as much detail as possible. Here is where all of the conceptualization is undertaken to assess the feasibility of the project in achieving the project's goals and aims. In this element, you need to define what shape the project will take. This is usually achieved through production of concept options and feasibility studies. For example, if considering a new road, in this element, you and the project team may consult with stakeholders, look at possible route alignments, and possible economic and environmental impacts of each option. One of the most important tasks in the element of the project is to identify gaps in existing knowledge and information. This will help you define for the next element what information gathering is needed and develop a strategy for gathering the information. For example, in a road project, this may be ground conditions and topography of the land and a likely road route. In this element of the project, you need to start to develop a clearer picture of the likely whole project budget for each of the options and allow appropriate contingency budgets by assessing the risk to the project. You and the project team will also need to identify where the project funding will come from. Will it come from capital expenditure or operational expenditure? Will the project generate income once implemented? Another key part to this element is risk identification. This includes health and safety risks as well as project risks. In this element, you will develop a register of assumptions, which will need to be defined in the next element, and decisions made during this element as much as possible. In this element, you want to eliminate assumptions and therefore gathering of existing information is key. If planning permission is needed for the project, in this element, you and the project team will initiate outline planning permissions with the local authorities. To complete this element and move on to evolution, we need to clearly define the project, identify gaps in existing knowledge and information, compile an information gathering system, define whole project budget and identify where project funding will come from, identify health, safety, environmental and project risks and develop a risk register, develop an assumptions and decisions register to track assumptions, and initiate engagement with planning if needed. Evolution. In this element of the project, the aim is to gain cost and program certainty. In this element, the project team needs to implement the information gather strategy to close any gaps in knowledge and information. Develop and update the concept with the new information to fix or freeze the project. Continue to progress the risk, assumptions, and decision registers, aiming to close out any residual risks and assumptions, and therefore reduce the project risks. Refine the whole project budget and assign budgets to any residual risks. From this, you and the project team will need to secure project funding. In this element of the project team may look at procurement strategies if the preceding project elements need to be let out to specialist consultants and/or contractors. Now, at this point in the project, further team resources are growing to bring in the procurement and legal teams. Further stakeholder engagement is needed in this element of the project before final details of the project are established, and we move on to the next element. Furthermore, engagement of the supply chain for the initial project induction is advised. In this element of the project, if planning is needed, detailed planning permission is needed with the local authorities. To complete this element and move on to articulation, we need to implement the information gathering strategy, refine the concept, refine the whole project budget, update the health, safety, environmental and project risk register, update and close out assumptions on the assumptions and decisions register, secure project funding, develop a procurement strategy for the preceding elements of the projects if needed, and planning permission. Articulation. This element of the project essentially boils down to detailed design. This is where we articulate all of the project specifics, such as final design, specifications, scope, and construction and buildability. This element is the first part of implementing the project. Here, we are setting up all the final project pieces before the project is actualized. This element of the project also includes the procurement of consultants and contractors if needed in order to achieve the articulation and the actualization elements of the project. To complete this element and to move on to actualization, we need to complete detailed design, update the whole project budget, update the health, safety, environmental and project risks register, update and close out assumptions on the assumptions and decisions register, implement the procurement strategy for the preceding elements of the project if needed. Actualization. This is the part of the project where the project plan is implemented. For example, if this were a new road construction, in this element of the project, construction will be undertaken. And finally, evaluation. In this element of the project, you and the project team will review the project goals and aims and assess if they have been met. We look at the matrices which were set at the start of the project and measure the effectiveness of not only the implemented project, but the project process. In this element, a lessons learnt exercise is the best way to evaluate as a team. What went well? What didn't work too well? And then from this, the life cycle of the project starts again. This course is a 6-part course which goes through each of the project elements which we have seen today in this presentation in detail. We will walk you through the steps which need to be taken in each element of the project and provide you with examples of projects which have worked. William and Bernard would like to thank you for your time and hope that this has helped to provide you with some valuable insight into successful project management. For further course details, please contact us and follow us on Instagram and LinkedIn, or email us on inquiries@williamandbernard.co.uk. If you'd like the transcript of this presentation, please don't hesitate to contact us. Your contact details will never be shared nor used for marketing. Thank you.